Hey, welcome back to Floodplain Friday. Nick here, and I'm at the Grass Lake Weir, just east from Lambert Lake Pond, where we were last week. Today, let's talk about how floodplains work. A floodplain is defined as level land that may be submerged by floodwaters. Another definition describes it as a plain built up by stream deposition. Before I dig into this though, let's take a look around. Is this a floodplain? Is it sort of a floodplain? Is this a floodplain? Or how about this? Or how about parks or rivers that you visited and may have seen floodplains? Were they pretty places to walk or bike, or were they kind of messy and gloomy? What kind of emotion is attached to a floodplain? Now, think of something in your neighborhood. Are there spots that could act like a mini floodplain? Let's look at some things here in Vlamo, and we'll come back to that. Here in Vlamo, we have fairly level land, with over 500 wetlands in a 24 square mile area. One of our main waterways is Lambert Creek, which starts at Goose Lake and drains into East Vadnais Lake. In the late 1800s, this network of wetlands and shallow lakes was largely converted into straight agricultural ditches. This was an efficient way to get water off the landscape quickly, and it made it more conducive for crops. But this way of viewing water has created negative consequences that we're grappling with today. Without curves and space for water levels to rise and fall, water moves faster and speeds up the erosion process. With fewer places for slowdown and storage, some areas and properties can be hit especially hard with sediment outfalls, or high water, or even a wet basement. On a larger scale, Lake Pepin in southern Minnesota is a great example. Miles of channeled river that have lost much of their historical floodplains as runoff and erosion rates have also increased, have placed a heavy burden downstream on poor Lake Pepin. So, back to my question. Is this a floodplain? Sort of. Along Lambert Creek, there are 4 wetland complexes that act like floodplain zones. Within these wetlands, there's space for storage when water levels are high, such as after a big rain event. The weirs, like this one here, help maintain that storage and fluctuation, but the Lambert Creek channel still, for the most part, cuts through these wetlands in a straight line, which keeps some of the water quickly passing through instead of hanging out. And between the wetlands and weirs, velocity picks back up as more stormwater drains in. So are we maximizing our wetland and floodplain function? Truth is, not really. The consequences of not giving water much of a place to go is that it doesn't have much of a place to go. And there's always consequences when it comes to water. But not every lake, wetland, or every property sees or feels it the same way. So this is where Vlamo and other watersheds have worked to integrate water storage onto the landscape and reduce the strain on drainage ways, lakes, and existing wetlands like this one. One sign of a wetland under stress is a sea of cattails, showing that sediment has piled up over time. More recently, wetland projects have included creek meanders that help give water more space in its journey from A to B. A meandering creek, opposed to a straight channel, spreads water out, slows it down, and improves access to the floodplain. And the meander changes the way sediment moves too. During high water levels, instead of accumulating at the bottom, sediment is allowed to flow up over the banks and disperse into the floodplain. This creates a neat effect known as bank filtration. The variety of particle sizes from large to small act like a filter for the water flowing over the banks and into the floodplain. Some of the water will keep moving, and some keeps filtering as it has time to go into groundwater. In some places, bank filtration is a strategy to pre-filter wells and drinking water. So here in Vadnais Heights, drinking water comes from groundwater, but surface water from Lambert Creek and all the areas that drain into it flow to East Vadnais Lake, which is the drinking water for St. Paul and other nearby communities. In some locations, sediment has to be dug out by dredging. Culverts and spots such as Lambert Pond provide strategic access to places with high sediment buildup. But what about near your home and around your neighborhood?
Try spotting a place where water could be slowed down or stored. Maybe it's a low spot, near pavement or a downspout, or uphill. Can you see evidence of erosion or sediment piling up? Is it used for recreation? Or is it only visited by a lawnmower? Is it 10 feet or more from a basement? Have fun brainstorming or get creative. Different options such as rain gardens, native plants, ground covers, and bioswales can all be customized according to a site's needs and aesthetic preferences.
And so here's my last question. What would it look like to have a full spectrum of water storage and treatment, from the mini efforts upstream to the big ones downstream, like where we are here? How might a network of small to large scale storage impact our lakes, or those tricky places that get hit heavy with flooding, sediment, and wet basements? While Vlamo works on this every day, we still don't exactly have all the answers for what it looks like on every property or in every situation, because you are also part of the brainstorm. So, what do you think? In part 3, we'll take a look at native vegetation in floodplains as well as upland areas, with how it supports wildlife and ecosystem services like soil health. Thank you for watching. Gotta go!